Hi, welcome back to Penwell Sailing Ventures. So these are just my thoughts on buying a boat to fix up. So you've been dreaming of sailing and you've been watching people fix their boats and work on them. And figure, I'll go buy a good used boat. So you get all geared up and you start looking. And as you're looking, the reality sinks in exactly how much some people actually want for these boats. So then you drop your search down to local ads, smaller ads by owner, and you start realizing these boats probably need work. They need rigging, they need sails. Do you think this is a great idea? No. Then it crosses your mind, if I get the boat cheap enough, I can do all the work. I can get all the parts, and I'll come in under its value and maybe make money when I sell it. Not always the best idea, and this is what you might find. So now you're looking at the free boats, the bargain basement boats that seem okay. But what you have to realize is, the work entailed in these boats, you are basically going to end up rebuilding this boat. It's not just as simple as a 40-year-old boat, 30-year-old boat, even a 10-year-old boat that has damage. Other things will be damaged. And we're going to look at a few of those problems that we might find, and what you need to actually think about when you go to buy one. So the big thing to think about with a boat is, you know what the end product is. You want to be sailing and be happy and enjoy your boat for decades to come. But you need to learn about your boat. You need to learn about the design of it. You need to learn about how it's built, what is underneath what you cannot see. These are the things that can get damaged over time, and these are the things that rot, and these are the things that get twisted, and that are going to need to be repaired, more than likely by you, unless you're paying somebody to do it. And in that case, you've blown the budget to begin with. First thing I look at, hull integrity, to understand if this project's even going to be worth building. If the boat has a lot of blisters, delamination, cracks in the hull, old damage, structurally compromised, forget about it, find another boat. Starting by looking under the waterline is the best place to start. Using a moisture meter or hammer, tapping for voids, trying to find that dull thud, or trying to find blisters that might have accumulated water over time underneath the coating and paint or inside the fiberglass. And something to remember, no boat is immune to this, and these will require repair. As well as you want to check the through hulls. You want to check for any old damage that you can find near the waterline. They'll need extensive repairs to keep water out. What you'll also be looking at is the keel. You'll be looking at what even fin keels get as a smile. A separation between the keel itself and the hull of the boat. It's not a guaranteed problem as keels flex, but no boat is immune to it. All boat keel designs can have this problem and this issue. And over time, left untreated or untaken care of, they become much larger and larger problems. And then you get into keel construction. When you're dealing with iron, it expands and cracks over time when it dries out, once it's been corroded, and leaves voids and problems, and it must be taken care of. As well as you want to check your rudder and your prop area, just to make sure everything is solid. And the next thing you'll check is the rigging. You want to check the standing rigging, the running rigging, and the sails, and the mast, to make sure it's in line with the keel, that nothing is bent out of line, because that can lead to bigger issues or bigger problems and more expense. You want to check your standing rigging, which is your cables, your ropes, anything that secures the mast from the top of the mast, mid-area of the mast, or any part of the mast to the boat. You want to check your running rigging, which is all your halyards, or ropes, as some people would still say. And that is everything that connects the sails to be adjustable and to raise and lower. You also want to check the sails themselves, because the sails themselves are going to be another large expense next to the rigging. To give you an idea, the rigging on Felicity, my boat, is over $6,000 to completely have done. And also my sails from Precision Sails are going to cost anywhere from roughly $5,000 to $8,000, depending on what grade I get and what I have done to them. And always keep in mind, you never know what the previous owner or owners may have done to the boat before you. The next thing we'll look at is deck integrity. We want to look for the small hairline fractures, stress cracks, anything that allows water to get underneath and get to the core of the deck, if the deck has a core. But something to keep in mind, something flexed to cause those cracks. They don't just happen over time for any reason. They happen because of movement. Now it makes you wonder what kind of stress was put on the boat. But also to look at is what has happened below that. What does the deck look like underneath? How is the core? Is it rotted? Does it have any water in the wood? Is it compromised in any way? These are the things that will cost us money and time to repair and replace. Sometimes you get a boat with none, but often you'll find soft spots in the deck that need to be fixed. Something else you also need to take in mind is the window seals. Around the window areas and hatchways, all the seals and all the sliding parts. Has it worn away at the gel coat to allow water to seep down in and through? Has it worn away at the fiberglass? What hasn't happened there? What is leaking? Because these will all cause the core to rot and give us problems. And that's what we need to worry about, because that is the upper part of our boat, which is still helping to hold everything together, as well as keep the water out so we don't sink like a rock. And now we come to the interior part of the boat. So we need to find about everything that we normally can't see. We need to look at the hull construction, the construction of the inside of the cabin, as well as keel bolts. Always got to check keel bolts. Make sure there's no rot in the floor, under the floor, because all these little hidden things will cost us money and time. And the biggest thing we want to check as well, a lot of people neglect, is checking the seam between the deck and the hull itself. Often this area leaks, as under a lot of pressure, a lot of flexing, and over time, the sealant will dry out eventually. And a lot of the time, that's where the leaks come from that people can't find. And now to consider steering and interior deck fittings. The steering systems always seem to be overlooked, quite often. You have cable systems, you have hydraulic systems, you have systems that operate just on leverage. And the thing of it is these things need checked quite often, and often are in the smallest part of the boat. You also have a tiller steering system, which is pretty direct. If you're lucky, it's bolted to the rudder, and you can easily get to it. Now, as we go to the interior, we have the different things. We have the deck seam that needs checked for leaks again. You want to check the under part of all your fittings to see what those stress cracks got caused by. What you also want to check is your through hull fittings. You want to see the kind of shape they're in, especially if the boat is in the water at the time. See if there's any seeping, weeping coming in, as well as checking the stuffing box around the back of the engine and prop shaft areas. You want to also pay attention to anything you hear creaking structurally from below the waterline that seems out of the ordinary or suspicious in any way, or any kind of movement when you walk on the deck that you hear knocking. This can often mean there's hidden damage somewhere in the substructure of the boat. And now we're going to worry about the plumbing and electrical systems, something else that often gets overlooked. Because when you buy an older boat that's sat, a boat that hasn't been maintained, you end up having a lot of problems with the plumbing and the electrical systems as well. You can have corrosion, you can have very bad wiring jobs, you can have a bird's nest sitting inside. There's not much else you can do. But you always have to be careful with these, because this will all add up when it comes to the refitting cost. Unless, of course, you want the boat to become a bonfire or leaking. Then we move on to the engine. The engine itself's a pretty quick check. You check the outside of the engine, you check the gearbox to make sure it's okay. You check its filter systems to see how dirty the fuel would be going in, but you also want to check the oil. You want to always check the oil and see whether or not water has gotten into the oil and started to basically tear up the bearings on the inside of the motor. Anywhere the pistons ride with the rings or the bearings, any of that all needs clean oil, or else it tears itself apart. Another area you want to check is other than the hoses and the fittings, because the hoses will dry rot over time and the fittings will crack from age, is the water tanks. You want to make sure the water tanks aren't leaking, especially the black water and the head. You want to make sure that it's not leaking. Nobody wants to live in a sewer. But contrary to popular belief, sitting water does not stay clean. If there's any impurities in the tank, it will combine with the water over time, bacteria, anything that gets in there. And then you have a whole nightmare. So this must be checked when you're looking at it and measured into the cost. And the last thing to check is the comforts of the boat. A lot of this is replaceable, but keep in mind, It all costs money. You're going to want to have a good way to cook, a good way to eat. You're going to want to have a clean environment in this boat when it's done. Not to mention you're going to be comfortable and sleep well. But don't worry about things too much, because the thing about doing the interior is if you take care of the main parts or have the main parts already taken care of for you, those little small details that end up being the larger parts of what you worry about will work out in the end so that you can have a beautiful, gorgeous boat when it's all said and done, if you take your time. And do it right. Not to mention, always keep in mind the budget. Unless you really, really love the boat for some reason and just can't part with that particular boat, rebuilding an old boat is almost just as bad as building a boat from the hull up yourself, buying a new hull and building it up just a little bit cheaper. But it can be done. You have to always outweigh the cost to see if it outweighs the effort you're putting in, the time you have, and your budget. Always keep that in mind, and always plan 50% to 70% more than your current budget. That way you stay out of trouble. Well, I hope this just gave you a bit of an idea of what all you're getting into with rebuilding a boat and trying to basically find the budget way of doing it. The costs get stretched out longer and not as immediate, but it's still a chunk of money. And I don't know everything about this. I'm no professional by any means in boat restoration, but I'm just sharing with you the things I've learned over the years and the things I've come to know, and hopefully this will help you out. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Like and subscribe if you want. Thank you. And don't forget to visit us on Patreon.